Isn't it interesting how you can look back at your life and pinpoint certain pivotal moments, events or decisions which change the course of your life forever? Like, God, what if I decided not to go to university? Or what if that person had never broken up with me? Or what if we had never had kids? How would our lives have turned out then? Leaving home and moving abroad was one of those pivotal moments for me, and I can't begin to imagine how my life would look like if I'd not made this decision. I think it's safe to say that I would not be the person that I am today, and although I didn't know it at the time, this really set things in motion, which led to, a very different life to anyone else that I knew at the time. To leave everything you've ever known for something which is essentially unknown and uncertain is very exciting, but it's also very scary. And so in this video, I would like to share why this was one of the best decisions that I've ever made, how I made it, and hopefully it will help you come to your own conclusion if you are at a crossroads or have a big decision looming. Okay, so I talked a little bit about my motivations for making this decision back in my previous video about language. I was feeling a little lost, a little out of place, and I was really on the search for a mission and for something a little more meaningful. Many of my peers were staying at university to do a master's or a PhD, and it really just felt to me like they were delaying life. They were doing anything they could to avoid getting a job and to stay in this very safe, very secure cocooned life. And this is not what I wanted. I really was, ready to actually start living and start experiencing some new and different things. I got accepted into a program run by the British Council to teach English in China, and no one else I knew was doing anything like this. I was the only person to be accepted from my university, and it felt a little bit like I'd made it. Like, I really felt that this was something that I could achieve, and nobody was encouraging me to do it. People thought I was crazy to try and learn Chinese, and a lot of people just didn't understand why I, had any interest in the country. Up until this point, I'd not been making many decisions about my future. I'd sort of been procrastinating and putting things off and just sort of letting life happen and just really being very swayed and influenced by other people. And so this really was the first time that I bet on myself. It was the first time that I decided to go against the grain, to do something that a lot of people just didn't see any value in and didn't really understand why I was doing it. I was really struggling to find people who thought differently or just excited me in general. Everything felt very samey, very safe and secure, and I was really looking for different ways to live and different ways to look at the world. Essentially, I was looking for a paradigm shift, and I thought that this might be one way of sort of achieving that goal. I am not a fast learner by any stretch of the imagination. I really have to learn by doing the thing through experience, and so you can explain to me, 100 times how to complete a process or use a piece of software, and I won't be able to do it. But if you sit me down in front of the computer and I am the one actually clicking the buttons and writing on the processes, I only need to do this once, and the process and everything is, fixed in my brain. I'm really not an academic person at all. I've always found traditional study, as in sitting down and reading books and taking notes, to be challenging. It's not something that comes easily to me. What comes naturally to me is actually learning by doing the thing, experiences in the flesh. And this is exactly what I got in China. It was 2 years of intense experiences. At times, almost too much. I felt overwhelmed. I must have met thousands and thousands of people in those 2 years. It was a period of intense extroversion for me. I was out almost every weekend and almost actually every weekday as well. There are literally thousands of stories I could share from this time in my life. I remember going to a rave on a disused aircraft carrier in the middle of nowhere, somewhere between Beijing and Tianjin in the north of China. And there were literally thousands of people there. We had to take a taxi for like an hour and a half to get there. And it was just something which I was not expecting to experience in China. It's not really the sort of thing you would imagine when you think of China. And it was one of those formative experiences which made me very aware of how false and how biased our sort of preconceived ideas can be. It was a time for experimentation, new sounds, new sights, new customs, new heights, and of course also new lows. Amidst all the excitement and the craziness, I experienced intense periods of loneliness and isolation. And although these were very uncomfortable experiences, I do think there are very powerful lessons that we can learn from loneliness. When you are in a dark place, when there is nobody to call for help, when you feel the walls of your room caving in, suffocating you, that is the moment when you really get to know your true self. And if you haven't spent much time alone, you will no doubt surprise yourself, for better or also for worse. When we realize that nobody's coming to save us, and changing this situation really depends wholly on us, on our own actions and thoughts and behaviors, this is when, our true colors really come out to shine. At the end of the day, the most important relationship you will have is the one with yourself. Most people are just too distracted by life to really just stop and think about, who they are and what it is that they actually want. Many people don't know why they are doing this job or why they're dating this person. Maybe they did at one time, but things change and motivations change and desire also changes. And so if you are standing at a crossroads and it's scary and you're not sure what to do, I have found it very helpful to think about what that decision will make you become instead of whether you will get an immediate win or not. It might sound cliche or cheesy, but moving abroad really was the best decision I could ever make, because it really created an environment where I had to get to know myself, or I had to rely on myself and be resourceful and be resilient. And these are things which are difficult to cultivate if you're in a comfortable, familiar environment.